Is there anybody out there? Hey, everybody. Woo! There we go. Hello, everybody. Hopefully you can hear me. We'll start with the usuals, like I'm tapping the mic, I'm talking, comment, and let me know if I'm coming through okay. That's one of the things I don't like about StreamYard. It makes it kind of difficult to know, like if the audio is coming through loud and clear. Testing, testing. So James, I see you. Can you hear me? Just let me know if you can hear me, and then I'm like, yay, I can continue on. Because if I'm just talking and it's silent, then that's no good. Yeah, I'm assuming that means yeah. We'll go ahead and assume that means yeah. I mean, I tested it. There is a settings panel in StreamYard that you can go into. Okay, great. Thank you. There is a settings panel. But the thing that I've noticed about StreamYard, excuse me, because I'm like getting over a cold. I was out yesterday, hardcore. Like I was up in the bedroom all day resting because I had a really nasty cold. But anyways, so I'm not perfectly like healthy today, but I am much, much better. I actually have the energy to do this. But anyways, StreamYard is the software that I use to do live streams online. It's what, like the DTNS team uses, it's what we use for Android Faithful, all those things. AI Inside, of course, this. And it's a cloud TriCaster. It's a way in the cloud to switch video and everything like that. But I've noticed one of the big kind of missing features is the ability to get any sort of context around audio levels compared to everyone else. So like comparatively speaking. So like I can go into my settings and I can see the little, I can see the little VU meter, which I think is only like 5 lights or whatever. So the resolution is not very high on the VU meter. But I can see when I'm talking that it's moving and that it's moving within the boundaries that it sets anyways. And so that's great. And we can all, if there's multiple guests on a show, we can all do that. But there's no way for me as like a producer of a live event to get any sort of understanding of the contextual balance between all of the audio levels to each other. So we might all think that we're strong and that our audio signal is great because our little VU meters are bouncing and everything like that. But how does it sound between us, between all of us? Is it balanced together? And there's no real way to do that. I wish there was like even in this interface, my live interface, which I can't show you because I'm streaming from it. There is like a 3 light VU meter, 3 levels. So it's really basic, right? I have hardly any information to go on whether the signal is strong enough or weak enough or weak, and especially compared to anyone else. And so anyways, it's a big downside, I think, to StreamYard. It's one of my least favorite things. Hi, Ozone Art Foundry. What's up? On Twitch, no less. My Twitch streams are very low. I mean, I did just start this thing like a month and a half ago. So I guess I'm not that surprised. Hello, everyone, for tuning in and switching over for this kind of live office hours thing. And I'm really sorry in advance because, well, because like I was saying before, some of you connected, I have a cold. Pretty sure I had a kind of like a flu-ish cold yesterday. Today is just like a cold. It's like kind of nasally, a little bit of, throatiness. I'm just going to be here all day, so I'm not exposing anyone, to anything. And I feel much better than I did yesterday. But also I apologize because like I had originally planned on doing this on Friday, and I ended up kind of last minute having to change course on it. And I'll tell you why, because it was a totally last minute out of the blue thing. And it's kind of interesting. I've never experienced this before, but a friend of mine who I wouldn't say is like a super close friend. Like we don't hang out, but he's really nice. He's actually the brother of a close friend of mine, and he works in media. And he reached out to me. I think maybe even Thursday morning. Was it Thursday morning or Wednesday morning? I can't remember when I delayed this office hours thing. Reached out to me and said, "Hey, would you like to be in a commercial?" I was like, "Well, that depends. What is the commercial?" And he said, he was hired by a very major car company to to cast for a commercial about the car company, and it's specifically about self-driving technology. And one of the parts for this thing is to get a legitimate self-driving technology expert on to, yeah. And I don't think that when I say like cast and commercial, it's not necessarily the kind of thing where they would tell me exactly what I need to say. They would interview me as the self-driving technology expert. They would interview me about, I think primarily it was about like the history of self-driving technology. And yeah, it was interesting because like I got that and I looked at it and I was like, well, that sounds really interesting. He's like, yeah, you'd be going to they fly you out to Vegas, they give you this really nice, payday plus a per day payment as well. And adding it up, it was like, okay, that's actually totally worth it. But I realized that I felt a little uncomfortable about it because I wouldn't necessarily consider myself a self-driving technology expert. Like, what is that? When I think of that, I think of someone like Abul Samad, um, who lives and breathes this stuff, right? And I did pass this on to him, by the way. I never heard back, but he's probably been really busy. Anyways, my friend just basically said, you're the first person that I thought of, and I need to book on this fast. Like, I need to collect people and get these kind of like rehearsals and recordings done so that the powers that be who are going to do this commercial have what they need to pick from and to select, for all of these parts, including, of course, the self-driving technology expert. And, I was talking with my wife about it that night. I guess this was probably Wednesday night. And I was like, this sounds interesting to me. At the same time, like I do not consider myself a self-driving technology expert, self-driving, autonomous vehicle expert. Like I'm just not. And not to mention, like, I will fully admit, like vehicles, like cars, like I know a lot of people geek out about cars. I've never been that person. I've never geeked out about cars. I realize this, granted, this is different, right? This is self-driving technology, which is very neat and also very much kind of within the realm of artificial intelligence, which is what I'm really working hard at becoming more knowledgeable about and becoming more comfortable about. That's, big part of the reason why I'm so excited to be doing AI Inside with Jeff Jarvis. Um, and so I was telling her, I was like, I don't know, like, I'm sure they're going to find someone, but like, there are a million people out there who are legitimate experts in this field. And I can go back, I can hit back and say, sure, I'll do that. But I am not that person. Like, I have interviewed a lot of people about self-driving technology. I'm fascinated by it, but I'm not an expert about it. And, and she said, well, maybe you could be. I was like, well, I guess I hadn't thought about it like that. I guess if I really, spent my time really researching and understanding on a deeper level, and then it kind of clicked for me where I was like, well, wait a minute. The um if I approach this thinking they want me to be an expert and I'm not an expert, I'm probably going to fail. If I approach this thinking I'm a technology podcaster, I find this interesting, so I'm going to do all the work that I need to do to feel rehearsed and to understand the technology enough so that I could talk about it kind of in the capacity that I would if I was doing a podcast. So I really treated it as if I was kind of getting ready for a podcast. And so I said yes. And so Friday, was it Friday? No, Friday was, oh, yeah, it was Friday. So Friday evening was my kind of recording date for the kind of the trial run. And I spent all day Friday just basically Friday was a get smart on self-driving automotive technology. And yeah, it was a cool exercise. Uh TLDR, I did not get the part. Which I kind of figured I wasn't going to, like, even and I do think, it was like a 45-minute recording for this thing, via Zoom, with my friend. So it wasn't like I had this like pressure of like a bunch of people I don't know staring back at me on Zoom. It was him, and he really wanted to see me succeed. He's like, really, at the end of the day, I just want you to have this. Like, I think you'd be great for it. Um, and so he was awesome to think of me. He was awesome to, help me through that. And a little bit over the hump, he encouraged me and stuff like that. Um, but at the end of the day, I saw it, I looked at it going into it really as more of kind of like a learning opportunity. Like, okay, here's something that is presented to me. There's a lot of upside, visibility, potential visibility, potential income. But outside of the potentials, which all rely on me getting chosen, there is the upside of pushing myself to an edge that I don't feel comfortable with, but I do it anyways. And I have a hard time with that in my life sometimes. I like to be very comfortable. And so it was kind of a cool opportunity to, I don't know, walk to the edge a little bit and be like, all right, cool. I'm gonna live up to this, image of being a self-driving tech expert. There was one question that totally threw me for a loop, and it was early on, and I wish that hadn't happened. Or rather, I wish I would have known that I could have said, "Hey, can we stop the recording and start over again?" But I didn't think to do it at the time, and I don't know that that was necessarily the break, the make it or break it. But it was a moment where I knew in the moment, like, ugh, this is they're gonna watch this and they're not gonna be very impressed. And it's too bad that it was early on, because it could have been the kind of thing where, that did make their decision. But my friend did tell me that I made it past the first round. He said, "You made it into the second round." So there are things that they liked about you. And I even told my wife afterwards, I was like, if I get picked for this, it's not because I'm the most knowledgeable, it's because of my personality. Because I knew that I did it with, just I knew that I was myself. And I don't know, I feel pretty comfortable with, if I'm myself on a live stream, I, have the understanding that people like that, that people have told me that. So anyways, it was an interesting experience. I had to postpone Friday's office hours because of that. I had to make room for kind of the study day. And so that's why. So, anyways, thank you for allowing me to postpone. It's great to have 19 of you, if StreamYard is correct here. I'm also talking right to the camera and reading things directly, because guess what? I have, well, I can't show you because I'm using it, but I have the Elgato Prompter, which is pretty rad. It is, let's see if I can do this. Hold on. Elgato Prompter. Give me 1 second, and I think I can kind of pull this up on the stream for you. Okay, let's see here. So the Elgato Prompter. So I got this a couple of weeks ago, and it's a cool little piece of gear. I mean, it's 280. Which, I mean, in the realm of prompters, isn't that expensive, to be quite honest. And Elgato, I really have realized how great the Elgato brand is for what I'm doing. It's a kind of lower cost equipment that does things that, normally require a lot more money, but they're really designed for kind of like the independent creator in mind. And so it's cool because, you've got this little area here, which is the reflective mirror that reflects the built-in screen down here. It's kind of a small screen. Thankfully, my camera is not too far away. If I had to guess, I don't know, 3-ish feet away from my face. It would be kind of more ideal, to be honest, to have a teleprompter maybe twice that distance further back, but I don't have the room because, as y'all know, this room is pretty small. Because then when I'm reading things, my eyes don't have to travel as much distance. Like, the closer it is, my eyes travel more. The further it is, my eyes can see more and less distance. And so the promptering looks a lot more natural when you do that. But anyways, it hasn't hurt me so far. The last Um, did I have the Elgato Prompter? Yeah, I've had the Elgato Prompter for both of my longer form reviews or videos on the Elgato Studios YouTube channel. So if you if you didn't notice that I was reading from a prompter, well, I was, and it was this. If you did notice, well, congratulations, it was this. But so this is the whole setup. This right here is kind of the insert if you have Elgato's webcam. So it works, it can work with webcams. It actually has like a platform that you can use here. Let's see if I play this video. Um, and then it has all of these different inserts for different size lenses. So I have I have a, what is it? A G5 Lumix GH5 camera, a micro 3/4 camera. And so, and it has, I have two of them actually, one up there and one right there. See, I'm switching between the two. And they each have different size lenses. And so the Elgato camera or the Elgato prompter comes with all the different step up and step down rings to be able to fit the prompter on the top of it. And then, yeah, I just plug it into my Mac and it shows, like right now I have it showing the StreamYard interface. So I've got you guys up there. So like that allows me to like look directly at you while I'm taking, while I'm fielding things like Ozone, you've been up for so long. Sorry about that. You got so much extra time. That is the problem. Like the screen is kind of small. So when I get the StreamYard interface and the StreamYard view is even smaller, it's like this tiny thing on the screen. It's hard for me to know exactly what's showing and what's not. Um, Anyways, it's a really cool piece of gear. I'm really happy I got it. I knew that I wanted see, oh yeah, see, so that plate that you saw is for the Facecam Pro, which is what you see there. But it works with all different, like if I had the C920, the Logitech C920 that I have up in the bedroom for podcasting, if I had that down here, I could mount that there. There's like all this flexibility as far as mounting onto this setup. So I got that not too long ago. I did like a rough unboxing of it with the intention of like making a video of it. And it was like the first thing that I did with my new setup before I recorded those other kind of reviewy things. And it just didn't turn out that great. I was like, you know what? I can sacrifice that. It's interesting as a air quotes hashtag creator, your mind starts thinking about everything as opportunities. Everything becomes an opportunity for content. Content kind of feels like a dirty word. I don't know. Even though it's like what you live and breathe, it still feels like everything is content. Ooh, that could be content. I don't know. It just kind of feels kind of yucky, even though it's necessary. It is what it is, I suppose. James, that is yeah, stuff you never think about. I think you were talking about the StreamYard stuff before. Yes, you're right. You guys never think about this. I like to tell you because I live and breathe it. Um, Let's see here. Wild West Dan just got the Elgato Prompter. Nice. What do you think? I'm super curious. Give us your chatty review of it. So far, I'm really liking it, and maybe I should do a review of it. Again, touching back on it's content. Wild West Dan says, I like it. I put Teams on it during the workday. Oh, okay. Yeah, that is another really great use for this. If you're spending a lot of time on calls, on video calls and stuff like that. I mean, it's just so much more engaging, right? When the person on the other side is looking at you. It's more like real life and not quite as much real life as maybe the Apple Vision Pro in a meeting might look like, but I can't speak from experience there. I haven't put my face into the Apple Vision Pro yet. I would love to though. Yeah, Ozone, it can be tough to weed out everything you do and not feel the impulse to throw everything at the audience. Well, that is true. And I think I'm learning that balance right now. Like I have a rough commitment that I've made for myself to produce one big thing per week. That doesn't sound like a lot, but it really is. I mean, all the pieces that go into creating a 7-minute video. And by the way, I'm not arbitrary as far as like duration. I write my script. I want my script to say the things I want it to say, and then I record that. And that's how long the thing is. And sometimes I omit things. Like sometimes I will script and then I'll record, and then as I'm editing, I'm like, that doesn't really need to be there, and I'll take it out. Or I had this on the first video. I had this whole block at the beginning of the video that was like set up about OnePlus as a company, and um kind of their how they started strong, and then they had some missteps and blah blah, and it was kind of setting the foundation, setting like this historical foundation. And in the edit, I really just wanted to get the video out, and I'll be completely honest, I hit that point and I was like, I have no idea what b-roll to cover this with. It's interesting, but I'm just going to get rid of it. So I ended up getting rid of it out of laziness. But at the end of the day, I think I'm actually kind of happy I got rid of it. Because I didn't end up spending more time on the video than I needed to. The video did fine without it. And I think like there's something to be said about YouTube. Like I've been doing a lot of research in the last month or so about kind of how to approach creating content for YouTube and how to stay true to my own voice while also realizing that um there's a certain kind of demand or expectation that people have about certain types of content that they find on YouTube, and just kind of realize like that setup may have been too much for some viewers. That setup might have lost people because they're like, well, I'm just here for the full, like the open, which I happen to have right here. I'm just here for the open, which is what you promised me, and you're talking about all this fluffy stuff, or backgroundy stuff, which is not to say that I won't do that. I actually did that in the watch thing, I think, if I remember correctly. Anyways, so yeah, so it's a whole series of lessons. Okay, so let me see here. Am I caught up? If it's something that you can get rid of because of laziness and you're not upset about it, then it could have been cut in the first place. Exactly. Well, and that's, I think, how I felt about it when I was doing that is, I as I was and I recorded it so I had scripted and I had recorded it. It was purely in the edit that I ended up removing it. And I just kind of realized like, oh, wait a minute. The edit is another copy edit stage. Like there's writing the script, there's going through the script to make sure it says what you want it to say. And then, hopefully you don't do this a lot, but in the edit, you have the opportunity to copy edit even further, and trim it down, or get rid of a couple of sentences that feel redundant or whatever the case may be. Sometimes I don't notice those things until I hear them or I see them, um, on screen, kind of in the context of the final product. That's when I'm like, oh, wait a minute. That doesn't really need to be there. I said that two shots back or whatever the case may be. Okay, so since I have you here, why don't we take a look at a few things? Give me 1 second here. If I had hold music, I would be playing it right now. Okay. I am noticing my throat getting a little raw from talking as I get over this cold. Okay, so what do you want to see first? Well, actually, let's start with the thing that just released, which is the Nothing Phone 2A. There we go. This is one thing that I'm realizing in this studio. I like the kind of darkiness, but it's almost too dark. I need to have some like product lighting. Oh, audio just got. Wait a minute, what? Wild West Dan says, I see nothing. Audio just got louder. Then it went back to normal. Yeah, I'm not sure what that was. I didn't touch anything. Is that a twitchy thing? I don't know. Moody. Okay. Okay. Yeah. The shot is a little moody. Okay. I was like, Wild West Dan said, I see nothing. And I was like, oh no, the audio just got louder and everything went dark. That's no good. Okay. So this is the Nothing Phone 2 2A, and I do wish I had a larger confidence monitor on this. It's hard for me to know whether it's focusing or not. So I actually got this phone just yesterday while I was sick. While I was sick, DHL came and delivered to me the Nothing Phone 2A. Um, so what do we have here? I mean, so in other words, I don't have a review of this ready, right? Like I've hardly even kind of set it up, and I'm starting from scratch here. Here, let's put something white underneath so I've got some contrast. That's what I think it is. The desk is just too dang dark. Might have to get something to put down there. So the Nothing Phone 2A. Oh, hold on. Okay. We might as well compare apples to oranges. Okay, now we're talking. So this is the Nothing Phone 2A on the right. You can see they've really changed the camera layout as one thing. Actually, they haven't changed it too much, which I'll show you in a second. On the left is the Nothing Phone 2. So this is their latest flagship, their second flagship. And then on the right is the 2A. Now the 2A is not meant to compete with the 2. That may be obvious. At this point, we kind of know what it means when a phone company says, a 2A or a 2S or whatever. They're basically saying it's of this family or of this generation, but usually it means they've trimmed away some things. They've focused it on something to bring it down in cost. And that is absolutely the case with the 2A. The Nothing Phone 2, as you can see, has the left kind of on the left margin of the phone, the dual cameras, and we do have a dual camera with the 2A, but it's centered. But you can kind of see like a very similar actually when you put them side by side. It's just the positioning is really different. So there you go. Also, what you will notice with the 2 here, let me power it up. I can show off some of the blinky light features, but I mean, I watched Marquez Brownlee's take on the 2A, and I think he put it perfectly as far as, the mid-range devices always make some sort of trade-off. This particular mid-range device does make a trade-off with the processor inside. It's MediaTek Dimensity 7200 Pro. I'll be curious to play around with it. Marquez said that, for most things it's great, but you do kind of get some slowdown when you're playing intense games and that sort of stuff. But what this phone offers that other phones don't offer, which is kind of hard to show in my lighting until I get it booted up here. And because this is the dark version, you have a hard time seeing through the casing. You can really see it on the 2. You can see how you've got this kind of see-through aesthetic, and all of these little LEDs that surround the thing. Those are glyphs, what Nothing calls glyphs, and they all have the ability to light up based on context. And the 2A is, a much less expensive phone. What is it? It's like how much is the 2A? Is it $350 at the cost? I'll have to look it up. Off the top of my head, I can't. 350. No, that's right. 350. 12 gigs of RAM, 256 gigs of storage. Okay. So $350, which is, I think, like half of what you would get the Nothing Phone 2 for. Firmly in that mid-range smartphone kind of realm. But what they're keeping here, what they're retaining is the identity, the brand identity, which is really kind of this style approach. The Nothing Phone 2A has the see-through, which again, I wish I could show off better with my lighting right now. It's just kind of hard. I obviously have things to work on. But you've got this kind of like see-through element to it. And you have a much more limited number of glyphs, which are the LEDs. You've just got 3. You've got one on the side here. one on the side here, one up of the round, and a smaller one down there. And then let me see if I can. My overhead camera is set to autofocus, so I hope that it behaves. Glyph interface. So if I go to ringtone, so if my phone is down and I'm getting a phone call, like that would happen, right? Like that would be my ringtone, and I would see it blinking for me. Although there are others, right? Let's see here. Ooh. Ooh. All right, you kind of get the picture there. The lights, flashing meant to really grab your attention. Could also, let's see here, go into notifications, default sound. Kind of feels like a toy, to be honest, but it's neat, right? Like it's a differentiator. There aren't many $350 phones out there that do that. In fact, I can't think of any. And that's, I think, the point is that nothing really wanted to, as Carl Pei has said, um, sorry, uh, sorry, why am I suddenly blanking? Because I have cold fog. Um, as Carl Pei has said, no, sorry. Ugh. Oh God, I'm so confused because I was talking about OnePlus earlier, and I was like, for a second, I had to doubt myself. I was like, wait a minute, am I still in the flu fog? And like Carl Pay's still with OnePlus? I got so confused there for a second. No, he did found nothing, so I was right. My initial instinct was right. Uh, Flu be damned. Um, he has said that really what they are looking for with the Nothing brand is to bring the fun back to the design era, right? Um, here on the right, I have the Samsung Galaxy S24 Ultra. And I mean, as far as smartphones are concerned, like this is a mammoth. And I'm not just talking size. Like this is a smartphone that likely gives you almost every like major feature that you might be searching for in a single smartphone. This is a fantastic phone. I've been using this for I think 3 weeks now, and I mean, it's just a remarkable smartphone, and I will be doing a review on this. Other things have kind of come in, so and plus it gives me more time to spend with this phone because it is a really wonderful phone. Um, but so it does everything. That's great. It's kind of a chameleon in that regard. But it's also, I mean, it's beautiful. It's not like it's not a beautiful phone, but there are other phones that look like this. And there are other, you know what I mean? Like it stands out because the build quality is just so incredibly polished and just all design kind of considerations have been addressed here. But at the end of the day, it really does look like a lot of other smartphones out there. It's been emulated a lot. That's I think what it is. Nothing is so early to the game right now with its own unique approach that hasn't really been emulated in this regard. And I don't know that we're going to see another company come out and do the glyph thing. Now you could argue, is that because the glyph thing is just a cheap gimmick and everybody else is like, well, that's not worth it. Or is it just because that's their secret sauce and they do it and they do it well, and no one else is going to touch that? I don't know. I don't know what the answer is there, but anyways, so the Nothing Phone 2A just announced, and the reviews embargo did lift this morning. I think at like 4:30 a.m. Pacific. and I will be spending time with this to see because it is a mid-range device. Like, and I think with a mid-range device, especially, the question that we ask is, as reviewers, we ask is, did they make the right accommodations to hit that price point? Because there are so many mid-range devices that come out and they're mid-range and they feel mid-range. And that kind of stinks when you get a mid-range phone and you're like, okay, yeah, this feels cheap or this feels cheaper, you know. The best mid-range devices are the ones that can come out at a lower price point and still wow you in some way, shape, or form. They're not going to hit all the points, but they're going to hit a lot of them if they're playing their cards right. So I'm really curious about that. Again, I just got this yesterday and I was sick. So it's not like I have a review prepped or anything like that, but I will at some point. Got 19 people watching. If any of y'all have any questions, feel free and hit me up in the comments. I will see them on my screen. Looks like I'm getting all of my comms from Twitch right now. Although earlier, Jesse, I did see your comment from YouTube. And then, of course, James, I called you out earlier. But yeah, if you're on YouTube and you got a question for me, shoot it to me. If you're on Twitch, keep doing what you're doing. Is that your main driver? I just showed off 3 different phones. So my main driver was the OnePlus Open until, not too long ago. I took the SIM out of the OnePlus Open. This is actually Ron Richards' phone. I have to get back to him. And I did drop it, but he knows I dropped it and it did not hurt the phone. I mean, I don't know if maybe you can even see. Can I even zoom in? Hey, look at my setup working. So I don't know if that's coming in visible or not. But so basically when I was in Park City, I didn't realize that I had it on my lap and not in my pocket. And I went to get out of the car and it went boo right onto the concrete. And thank God all that happened were these little scuffs right here, which is actually pretty awesome. Yeah, I was pretty surprised. Like when I saw it hit the ground, I was just like, "Oh, you got to be kidding me!" Here we go, and picked it up, and it was fine. It had some scuffs, and Ron didn't care. He knows it's just part of the game. This is just what happens, right? We live with these things, even when we're reviewing them. Like it's part of the experience is to live with them, and sometimes part of the review experience is to drop it and see, like, did it work? Like, does it still work? Did it survive the fall? So I was using the OnePlus Open while also kind of concurrently using the Galaxy S24 Ultra, which is kind of hard to do. It's kind of hard to use 2 phones. Like you have to really remember and that context switching for sure. Once I was done with the Open, then I kind of full timed it into the S24 Ultra. The challenge though is I get my Samsung review devices sent to me from AT&T, not Samsung. And so, which is amazing, they're great. They send me the devices to review anytime I ask for them, and I love that. And I'm very appreciative of that. But it does mean that their phones are locked to AT&T, which is great if you have an AT&T SIM. I do not. I'm on Mint Mobile, so it's basically a T-Mobile MVNO. And so when I get, an AT&T review unit, they do send a SIM, by the way. So it's not like I don't have a SIM for it. They send their SIM. But my preferred approach for reviews is always using a phone as if it's my own and not like part-timing it, but sometimes I have to. Sometimes I don't have a choice but to part-time it. And what do I mean by part-timing it? Like with the S24 Ultra, like I'm not taking calls on this, right? I'm not text messaging on this because it doesn't have my SIM. All that SIM stuff is going to my other phone. And so that's going to impact my usability of it. But I have to, so then I have to have two phones in my pocket, one that actually has the messages that I am receiving on my text messages or my phone calls, everything else on this. And I have to remember, like, oh, I need to check uh Twitter for something or whatever. I need to remember to pull this one out instead of wherever my actual SIM is. So it's not ideal, but it is what it is. Um, Wild West Dan, did you have the Fold? And if so, did you like the Open or the Fold more? Yes, I have tested the Fold. What was it? Z Fold review, Jason Howell, twit.tv. What was it? Z Fold 5. Oh, I don't want to do that. Um, you won't. You won't hear the audio because I'm not sharing the audio. But yes, 6 months ago, I had the Z Fold 5, which is the latest Z Fold, reviewed it on Tech News Weekly, back when I used to go into someone else's studio to record my reviews. Um, and yes, I mean, I think with the Z Fold 5, like, it's an excellent phone. It really is. My like sustained complaint about the Z Fold series is that they keep the cover screen too narrow for my preference. Um, and and I think it's important. I think it's actually really important because opening to the inside display is not something that I, as a user, I could be, an outlier, but I think I'm probably pretty representative of a lot of people who would use this phone. Is not something that I'm doing every single time I pull the phone out. It's just too cumbersome. Like I'm not doing the majority of my phone computing with this large space. Is it nice to have that? Absolutely. And there are certain use cases where that becomes really sweet. Opening up the browser on the inside or watching a video. Like I did that anytime I was watching a YouTube video or watching a video on the phone. Absolutely, I'm opening it up. Unless I'm like out and about and like moving, like if I'm at the dog park and I'm walking with the dogs and I'm watching a video, I'm going to hold it in candy bar phone mode as opposed to opening it up, because it becomes a little bit more cumbersome. So that front screen, the layout of the front screen becomes pretty important. And because I just powered this on, all of my notifications are appearing, so I'm not going to show it. Um, but at least with the open, let's put it, if I had to, like, I can't remember off the top of my head if it's actually like this, but on the Z Fold, it's almost as if on the Z Fold, your home screen only has 3 rows, which I think it actually has 4, but they're just smaller. Um, and on the open, you have 4 rows, but everything's bigger, everything's wider. It becomes a lot more usable. You really notice it with the keyboard, the on-screen keyboard that appears. If I God, I wish I could show this, but my notifications are just going off right now because I had it powered off for a number of days. And I just, I don't want to show you my notifications because they're mine. That's my stuff. But I think here, if you can see, like, this is the front screen with the keyboard, and that's I mean, it's probably hard for you to actually see what I mean by me just holding it up like this, but it's wide enough. Like it really does match pretty closely the wideness of a standard smartphone. It's not perfect. It's not quite there. I'm trying to do this, but there we go. All right, you can kind of see. I mean, it's super close. And so that front screen then becomes less of a bonus, which on the Z Fold is kind of what it feels like and has felt like for years. It's like, oh, well, it's kind of like a real smartphone on the front, but then you really get the experience when you open it up. And it's a real smartphone on the front and you get the real experience, the broad kind of opened up experience when you open it up. So it's kind of like the best of all worlds. So I guess that's my long-winded way of saying I liked the open more than the fold, which was really interesting to me considering how long Samsung's been doing foldables. That's pretty impressive when you think about it. Although somebody corrected me and said, well, it's not like OnePlus, was throwing darts at the wall with this thing. Their parent company is Oppo, and the Open is based on an Oppo phone that came before it and everything like that. And yeah, that's true. That's true. But I think it's interesting that Samsung's R&D didn't lead them to this place, but it led others to this place, because I think Samsung's wrong with that narrow approach. And I don't know why they continue to kind of double down on it. They probably have their reasons, but anyways. Now the Pixel Fold, that's a different story. I have not had the Pixel Fold for any real duration of time. There was a time where my contact at Google was going to get me one. They had supply issues. And then she said, oh, well, we can get you one tied with this particular announcement if you're interested in that. I was like, well, I'm absolutely interested. And it just never happened. So it's all right. I can let it go. Although I would love to have a Pixel Fold in my possession so that when the Fold 2 comes out, whenever that is, that I can do side by sides. But that might not happen. We'll just have to wait and see. Let's see here. Oh, okay. So how about this? So speaking of context switching, the OnePlus Watch 2. Let's see here. Can I show? Which has been the thing that I've been wearing for the past week. Now you see it kind of timing out. I think it times out after 5 seconds, is it? Or is it 10 seconds? Might be 10 seconds. 10? Yeah, so it's 10 seconds. All right, so the OnePlus Watch 2. I have had this now for about a week and a half. Not quite ready for my full review. I'm really doing a lot of like battery work with it. Essentially, how I started my time with the OnePlus Watch 2 is so it's at 81% right now. Yesterday, let me check my notes. Please stand by. Yesterday, I took it off the charger at 8:30 a.m. Okay, so basically I've had I've had this watch for a week and a half, and I've only ever put it on the charger once. The first time I put it on the charger was right when I got it. And when I took it off, I immediately put it into always on display mode. Let's see here. Right now it's not on, which I'll get to. But that first time that I charged it, I took it off the charger, put it onto always on display mode. And when you do that, it gives you this little message that says high battery usage. Turning on this feature will reduce your watch's battery life by 2 days. So then I did that because I was going to test it. Like, okay, well, if that's the case, how long does this battery last if I've got the always on display? And that's, of course, the feature that keeps your watch kind of view showing it. It kind of ramps things down so it's not using as much battery as it is when it's screaming at you like this. But it always has a watch face on, which is kind of similar to, what we normally have with a watch, right? And so I took it off the charger that way. And I took it off the first time at 7 a.m. on February 28th. And by March 3rd at 2 p.m., it was dead. It died at 2 p.m. on March 3rd. So that was 103 total hours of use, the way I normally use a smartwatch, with my notifications, with some walks in there, some fitnessy stuff. All of that. But I think the big key kind of point is that always on display was on, and it gave the warning saying, okay, well, you're going to kill your battery. And still it got 103 hours with always on display on that whole time. I think that is incredible. And it's not like the OnePlus Watch, the original, was running on RTOS. It was not running on Wear OS, so it was not doing arguably nearly as much as this watch is capable of. And it did, this time around, it really, really kind of blew me away. So yesterday at 8:30 a.m. after a full charge, I took it off the charger, deactivated always on display, and now I'm kind of waiting to see like, okay, how long am I able to get out of this without the always on display? I'm guessing I get more. I mean, I should get more. Right now, um, right now it's looking like 81%. So 81%, little more than 24 hours later. So 26 hours later, 81%. Okay. So that would indicate 5 days. 28, 29, 1, 2. So that would be an extra day. And I'm guessing more because once it gets down to 20%, I think it's 20%, then it has the ability to switch into that like low power mode where essentially it stops doing many of the like core Wear OS things. I think they call it smart mode is with Wear OS running the way you expect. And then I can't remember what they call the power save mode, but I think power save mode more relies on the RTOS um, kind of side of things, the best 2700 processor chip, because this watch has two different processors in it. It has the best BES 2700 BP for the RTOS, and then it has the main chipset, which is the Snapdragon W5 Gen 1, which is for the Wear OS feature set. Hello there, Nuno. Either way, I hope I got it right one of those ways, and either way, I'm happy to have you here. Welcome. Wild West Dan says my current watch gets to 80% before I leave my house for work and is dead by 4. Okay, I'm curious. What is your current watch? What is it doing? How old is it? No matter what, these things run on batteries, and batteries deteriorate over time. It's why the whole kind of like reviews approach about reviewing products, and I don't know how you solve this, but reviewing products, things will always seem so great the first couple of weeks that you get it because everything's fresh and new, and the battery has had no time to learn bad behavior. I just looked at my dog and then thought of that phrase, comparing our battery life to my puppy. But over time they kind of their capacity shrinks. Wild West Dan says Fossil 6 had it for 6 months. It's been like that since you got it. Oh, well, that's no good. Fossil 6. I have not used the Fossil 6. I think it's a Wear OS, right? Is it? Yeah, Wear OS. Wear OS 3. Okay. In a little over 30 minutes, your watch is 80% charged. So there's that. I suppose there's that, right? Like, well, it doesn't take very long to charge it up. So yeah. That does look like sorry, I should show what I'm looking at. The Fossil Gen 6. Yeah, that's a chunky watch. It's got a masculine quality to it. Although here we have it with sparkles. So yeah. 80% by the time you leave your house. That's rough. Maybe you need to check out the Galaxy Watch 2. I don't know. I don't know how I don't recommend the Galaxy Watch 2, considering the battery life is its key selling point, and it totally delivers, you know? If you're looking for a smartwatch that runs Wear OS and has distance when you're talking, battery life, I mean, the proof's right here. It's working pretty damn well. Yeah, and you've done all the kind of things, disabled always on, turned off notifications? Well, that right there, like, if you have to turn off your notifications to get any sort of useful battery life out of a watch, then God, I wouldn't want that watch. Um, oh, yeah, well, that's true, Wild West Dan. They have announced that they're getting out of, smartwatches. Yes. Hello, Mr. Faulkner. So good to see you. Wesley says you've said in the past that you don't stick with watches long term. Do you see that changing? Great question. Because it's true. Until recently, I haven't. I kind of had waves, you know. I'd go into the wearable thing, especially in the beginning. It was like, oh, wearables are amazing. I don't have to look at my phone. I get notifications on my wrist. It's the less I need to pick up my phone, the better. And now, like, it tells me when something comes through and I can just look at my wrist. And then at some point I was like, well, wait a minute. Now I'm looking at my wrist all the time because every single damn notification that comes through says, hey, you look at me. You know, it's like literally tapping you on the wrist saying, look at it. And so at a certain point I was like, I just need to eliminate the noise and get back to quiet. Are all these things so damn necessary for me to look at right now in this very moment? And so then I took a very long break from smartwatches. And well, it's upstairs. Only with no, sorry, no, it's not. It's right here. Only with the Pixel Watch 2 has that kind of like shifted for me. And I think the reason for that is pretty tied into what I'm doing right now. Um because um I have found a lot of utility in knowing immediately about certain things. Now post twit, like a lot of what I'm doing requires, or at least I feel. Let me think about this. Let me reflect a little bit. I feel like where I'm at right now professionally, that I want to be more connected, more engaged, more responsive in a timely manner than I think I was prior to being laid off. And I think part of that has to do with kind of the comfort of being in a I say 9 to 5, it wasn't really 9 to 5, but being in, a steady job with a career that I know really well. It was at that point, I was in a position to be able to enjoy the fact that I didn't always need to know immediately about certain things. And now I don't feel like I have that luxury. And as such, smartwatch is actually really useful for me. And it has been, and I keep putting it on. And that's my tell is like, are there days where I don't wear one? And right now there aren't. And I mean, I say that I just got over yesterday I had what felt like the flu. Um, and I was upstairs in bed watching movies all day. I had a smartwatch on. Now, part of it is because I'm reviewing the product, and so I want it to like be in the place for that review, right? I don't want it to be sitting on my nightstand, and then tell people, "Oh, it was great." Meanwhile, it was just parked on my nightstand. Like, I don't want that. I want it to be reflective of actual experience and actual use and everything. So even though I was sick yesterday, I was like, well, I got to put it on the watch. And I think, actually, no, I don't think I know. I actually slept with it on my wrist last night, which I do not do with wearables because I just don't like things on my wrist or my fingers. Like I don't sleep with my rings on either. It's just, it feels too, I don't know. I feel a little claustrophobic. Um, so anyways, yeah, I think that's kind of changed my perspective on it a little bit. Um, and what I'm trying to figure out, what I'm trying to like understand, get a better understanding about is that shift entirely for that reason? Or is there something to be said for the current state of wearables that I am more open to wearing them? You know, is is it me or is it them or is it both? I don't really know the answer to that yet. But I do know very, very clearly that this moment in time for me, I want to be closer connected to all of these things that are happening right now. And having a wearable, having a smartwatch allows me to do that. So yeah, I don't, there are some aspects of wearables that I just don't really care that much about. Like sleep tracking. I could really care less about sleep tracking. Maybe I should care more because I know that I have at least a mildly moderate case of sleep apnea, which I have a machine for and I don't really use. I need to get more serious about that. But um, you know, I just like the whole data analysis, data hoarding thing. Like, I just don't care. Like, I don't need to see a graph that tells me that I worked out really hard yesterday. You know what I mean? Like, on a good week, I'm working out 3 days a week, and, like, if I went in and I did the workout and then I went home, like, that's all I need to know. Like, I did what I needed to do. That was my challenge, and I met it. I don't need to see data to really understand, well, I could have pushed myself into a higher, category over here. Like, I just don't care. And I'm not begrudging anyone who does. Like, everybody has different reasons. My daughter is a swimmer, and we got her an Apple Watch SE for her birthday, because she wants to be able to time her laps and her splits and all that, while she's in the water, and that allows her to do that. So great. I have no use for that, but other people do. So, anyways, Wesley, good to see you. Hi, Consumer Compute. Consumer Compute. Read the next issue of Consumer Compute. Just kind of sounds like a magazine to me, which is not an insult. It's great to have you here. Sorry if that sounded like one. It just, you know what? It just reminded me of the magazine Compute from when I was a kid, and I really loved that magazine. So that's what that's all about. Let's see here. Well, okay, so we're getting some agreement on the Pixel Watch too. Yeah. Kep, welcome, Kep. Good to have you here. Says Pixel Watch 2. Love it. Nuno. Although I don't see like a little wavy line over the end, so it's probably just Nuno. But you can let me know either way. Pixel Watch 2 here. It needs the hybrid. It needs the hybrid system, but I think it will help the bigger size. Yeah, I think you're absolutely right. The hybrid system of the OnePlus Watch 2 that is the real differentiator here. And I'm curious to know if we're going to see more of that here. What other things can we show off here? I'm curious to know if we're going to see more of that in other wearables. Here, we'll go for an outdoor walk right now. And I would love to see more of that because it's obviously really, really effective. Okay, so there we go. And then when you're done with the workout, by the way, you don't just tap, which is actually pretty cool because if you're working out and you accidentally tap the screen and it stops your workout and then you don't know until the end of the workout and then you're like, dang it. Now what you have to do is you have to tap and hold. And so it prevents that. It prevents you from inadvertently ending your workout, which is pretty cool. Apparently, I am not very stressed right now. Good. Thank you, watch. Yeah. So I hope we see more hybrid. I'm not thinking that we're going to see the next Pixel Watch be a hybrid system, but I would love to see it, and I would love to be surprised by that. Wesley says, speaking as a person who is very busy, sometimes it is easier for me to deal with things as they come in instead of throwing it on the backlog. Absolutely. Although, oh God, there is always a backlog. And it's just a matter of like, how much backlog am I willing to accept? And how much of that backlog am I willing to just let go of and not feel guilty about it? Because sometimes, you know what? I can't get to everything. I'm not superhuman. And I'm just really sorry. Can't get to that. So yeah, I feel you on that. Like Nunu. Nunu. So it's Portuguese. Pronounced something like Nunu. Okay. Thank you, Nunu. I appreciate that. It's one of my things that I don't like in life is getting people's names wrong. And yet I know that I do it. But if I recognize that I might be doing it, I really try my best to call it out and clarify. And hopefully I get it right in the next time. That's the other part, is remembering to get it right the next time. All right. Well, it is now 66 minutes since I opened the stream. So I think it's probably time for me to kind of call it. Just because I don't want to overtax myself after kind of having the cold/flu that I did. And I can see my puppy needs to get out for a walk, and I need to get out for a walk. Yesterday was one of those days where I really didn't leave the house. It was a movie day. It was a movie day. How about we end with the movies that I saw? Let's see here. What did I see? Hopefully, we have some horror movie fans here, because that's probably my genre of choice. Maybe that makes me weird, but I've loved them since I was a kid. First movie I watched was Pearl, which I gotta say was really good. It's Ty West. Ty West is one of those horror movie directors of the last decade and a half, who's really really on a tear right now, producing some really fantastic horror. And this movie is really unique. It's actually a sequel to it's a prequel to a movie that he did, that he filmed two movies in 1 year and released them both in 1 year. Actually, I don't know if he filmed them both in the same year, but he definitely released them both in the same year. The first one was called X. Here, let's see here. Ty West. And it's kind of a relatively straightforward kind of slasher film, set on this farm, and these people who go there to film an X-rated movie, and all this other stuff happens. Anyways, that's the first film, right? And then Pearl came out later that year as a prequel to X, from one of the characters that you see in X. And it's kind of like her kind of like origin story. And like I'm getting like goosebumps from it, because it was so good. Like, it was super enjoyable. I feel like better than the first one. And partially because it's so unique. The only way that I can describe it is if you take who is the woman who played Dorothy in The Wizard of Oz. Why am I blanking? I should know this. Judy Garland. If you were to take Judy Garland and The Wizard of Oz story and turn it into a horror film, that's kind of what this was. But not The Wizard of Oz. Take Judy Garland on the farm, that very beginning part of The Wizard of Oz. If you just take that kind of backdrop and then make a horror film out of it, and a very unexpected horror film. And then it's also done with like all of these real great kind of throwbacks to kind of the Technicolor era, like the title sequence at the beginning and then the end credits and everything are all done kind of in that style. So it really kind of evokes this feeling of like you're watching a film from that era, but it's modern, and it's, a totally modern kind of, over the top at times horror film. Anyways, I had been putting off watching that movie for a long time. I'm not entirely certain why, but I'm really happy that I finally got around to watching it. Second, what was that one? Oh, God. Oh man, I'm trying to remember. Sorry. Be patient. I will get there. Do. I didn't plan this, so I don't have it all written down the way I might, have done if I had planned it. Do 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 do. Oh, okay. The second one I watched was apparently I was on a Ty West kick because I watched Pearl and then I was like, okay, that was really awesome. Um, and then I went through his kind of like filmography and I have often come across the poster for a movie called The House of the Devil from 2009. And the poster looks um very throwback, right? Like it looks kind of like what you might have seen on the shelves at a video rental place back in the 80s. And it's meant to. But for whatever reason, this is another one of those that like I look at the cover so many times and like someday I got to watch that, but I never actually did. And so now I was like, all right, I'm going to watch it. And it just makes me realize, I mean, those two back to back, it's actually kind of interesting because Pearl was really made with a certain era style in mind. And then The House of the Devil is the same, except it's a throwback to the 80s and really goes into it has a real slow build to it, so it's not your kind of immediate payoff thing, and actually that's what a lot of people criticize it for. That's why you see a lower audience score here, is it takes a long time to kind of build up to get to the climax of the film, which um I don't know. A lot of people feel like, it's a lot of build up for not enough kind of payoff. But I think Ty West's approach on this, his purpose was to emulate kind of some of those slow kind of burn mid 80s horror films that are just really kind of creepy and make you wonder and don't necessarily deliver cheap scares, jump scares, um, unnecessary gore, that sort of stuff, but just kind of like take you on a little bit of a ride where the ambiance is unsettling and kind of, eventually you get there. And that's what this was. And so, yeah, I give it a 4 out of 5. I think it was entertaining and I was in the right mood for it. I think if I was in a certain mood, I would get bored by it, or I'd be like, all right, come on, let's get to it. Let's pick it up. But I was in the right frame of mind for that yesterday. So that was my second movie. Third movie was a departure entirely. And this one is not a horror film because I have oh, any heart rate activity watching these films. That's a good question. Um, I'd be really surprised if there was any heart, probably a little bit, but I've seen so many horror films over the years that it I hate to say it, it really takes a lot to kind of get my heart rate up. Um, Not that it doesn't happen. There are certainly horror films that I've been like, okay, I can't do this. I have to turn it off. Um, Anyways, that wasn't any of the ones that I watched yesterday. But third one I watched was a kind of a sci-fi, not sci-fi. Well, it's called The One I Love, and it's from 2014. And it has Mark Duplass in it, who I'm actually a really big fan of. And then it also has Elizabeth Moss, who is also really great. Um, and I had never heard of this, and I just saw it on a list, the list was titled Mind F words. Like it was a whole bunch of movies that are just kind of like mind Fs. And this was on there, and I was kind of like intrigued by the poster of it and everything. And so I didn't look up anything about it and just watched it. And the idea of this film is that it's a married couple, who have encountered some difficult times, and their therapist urges them to go to this like secluded with a view kind of house with a guest house attached to it. Um, and he says, every one of my clients that I've ever sent there has come back, renewed, refreshed. Their relationship is completely recharged and reinvigorated. And so they go there, and very soon after, interesting things start to happen. And it's a total mind twister where you're like, wait a minute, what the heck is going on right now? And it was super compelling, and I really enjoyed it. And I think that Mark Duplass is he part of the writing? No, he wasn't. Okay. He has some really interesting roles that he's taken over the years, and I just always really appreciate his uh his humor. There's a certain aspect of the characters that he plays that I could like actually really identify with. I think that's why I like him. But anyways, it's funny. It's also really compelling and kind of a little twisted. And the, yeah, I wish I could reveal, and I don't want to. I would because the kind of essence of the one I love is also very similar, and this was not planned, but it just worked out this way, to the essence of the final film that I watched, which I have to pull up here if it will allow me to. No, plus one. Okay. Okay, which the essence of the one I love is very similar to the final film that I watched, which is one that um God, there's hardly anything about. And I think I kind of understand why. It's called Plus One. Science fiction mystery thriller that or at least as according to Rotten Tomatoes. As you can see, there's like nothing about it, right? Um and the description says the crash of a meteorite somehow transports past versions of college partygoers to the present. And yeah, there's some weirdly there was some overlap between the two movies that was totally unplanned, but the themes are actually very similar. And anyways, I wouldn't say that I necessarily highly recommend Plus One. It was okay. It was entertaining. It was kind of like, it killed an hour and a half, but it was probably my least favorite of the four. So, but anyways, that was a bonus. So that's what I did yesterday. I watched a lot of movies. Today I'm doing this, and then I'm gonna do Android Faithful later. Tomorrow, me with Jeff Jarvis doing AI Inside. Don't have a guest booked. I think we're just gonna do news. I'm okay with that because I'm having a lot of fun when we do those episodes. And there's yet again, there's a lot to talk about. And yeah. Beyond that, I'm not really quite sure what I got going on, but I do know that I appreciate you being here and being being patient with me as I am getting over a cold and hanging out with me. And this is always a lot of fun. So thank you. One last question before I turn off the stream. Wild West Dan says, biggest question about the watch. Does your phone alarm ring on the watch too? They removed that with Wear OS 3 and it kills me. No. No. Does my phone alarm ring on the watch also? No, it does not. It buzzes, but maybe that's my setting. Maybe I'm just keeping it on buzz because I don't like my watch to make noises. I'm not a fan of that. And I rarely ever use my watch as a phone, but I do sometimes. Like if I truly can't find my phone and I'm wearing my watch and a call's coming through, I'll accept it on my watch until I can find the phone. But I don't like the hello, how's it going? I'm not really a fan of that. So anyways, there you go. All right. That's the last thing I'm going to answer. Thank you everybody for watching. Real great hanging out with you and spending some time kind of catching up on things. Definitely going to be working on the Nothing Phone 2A review. Obviously still working on the S24 Ultra review. And the OnePlus Watch 2 review. Apparently I have a lot of reviews to do. Such is my life right now. We'll see if it can sustain me. Thank you everybody for watching and hanging out and asking really great questions. And I'll see you next time. Okay. Bye everybody.